Former Bodyguard Gene Deal has never been one to mince words. And in the wake of Sean Diddy Combs' federal conviction, he didn't hold back. His recent remarks about Christian Combs, Diddy's son better known by his stage name King Combs, a wave of attention across social media and among hip-hop circles. Speaking candidly during an interview with The Art of Dialogue, Deal expressed deep concern and visible frustration about Christian's public behavior outside the federal courthouse, where his father's legal fate had just taken a sharp downward turn. Deal painted a vivid picture of what unfolded on that now viral day. As the world watched, cameras rolling, reporters jostling for position, and fans whispering in disbelief, Christian emerged from the building with a demeanor many found jarring. According to Deal, Christian tore off his shirt, dropped to the concrete pavement, and began performing push-ups. He reportedly jumped around, smiling, flexing, and acting by Gene Deal's account more like someone celebrating a music video release than facing the potential downfall of a family empire. It was, Deal said, clown behavior. He was clearly disgusted, his voice tightening with each word as he issued a warning. This kind of display could be more damaging than the younger Combs realizes. Gene Deal is no stranger to the ways of public image and the legal system, having spent years by Diddy's side, witnessing firsthand the rise of bad boy records and the often turbulent personal life of one of the most powerful men in hip-hop. Deal understands better than most that perception is, especially during legal proceedings, everything. His critique wasn't just rooted in annoyance at an immature act, it stemmed from a deeper, more complex fear that the judicial system would interpret Christian's antics not as youthful exuberance or misguided loyalty, but as arrogance, disrespect, and a lack of remorse from the Combs family. That could lead to consequences far beyond push-ups on the pavement. These antics, Deal stressed, could provoke the judge to impose a harsher sentence. You can't act like this and think people aren't watching. The underlying message was clear: Christian's behavior wasn't just embarrassing, it was potentially dangerous. Deal's criticism didn't stop at warning about sentencing implications. He went further, delving into what he saw as the fundamental disconnect between Christian's privileged life and the real-world gravity of his father's situation. He accused the young artist of being completely out of touch. "You ain't no gangster," he said firmly. "You don't know what a gangster is. You're a prankster. Stop that." These weren't just harsh words, they were the words of someone who had once stood in the shadows of a dynasty now falling apart in slow motion. Gene Deal has long been known for speaking bluntly, but in this instance, his frustration was laced with something more human: concern that the family, and particularly its next generation, had not yet come to terms with the reality that Sean Combs, once the golden boy of hip-hop, the mogul who turned himself into an icon, was now a convicted felon facing the real possibility of spending years, if not decades, behind bars. Deal emphasized that the charges that had already been dropped, racketeering and kidnapping, might have offered some temporary relief to Diddy's supporters, but they were missing the point. Diddy's conviction on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution was no small matter. These are federal crimes. They carry mandatory minimums. There would be no walking away unscathed. No magic lawyers. No last-minute settlements. No celebrity shield. The law, in its slow, methodical way, was coming for Diddy, and Gene Deal wanted the world to understand that acting like it wasn't, especially outside the courthouse, was not only foolish, but potentially self-destructive. What made Deal's commentary even more piercing was the way he dissected the possible motivation behind Christian's behavior. In Deal's view, it wasn't just a misguided emotional release. It was rooted in entitlement, the false sense of security that money, fame, and family legacy could insulate someone from consequences. Deal suggested that Christian's apparent celebration might have stemmed from a belief that, despite the conviction, Diddy's empire and by extension Christian's inheritance would remain untouched. That the wealth, the fame, the prestige would somehow continue to flow, even if Diddy were behind bars. But Deal forcefully rejected that idea. "That's not how this works," he said. "You're playing with fire." At the center of this unfolding drama is Diddy himself. Born in 1969 in Harlem, and now one of the most recognizable names in music history. His journey from intern at Uptown Records to founder of Bad Boy to fashion and vodka tycoon is the stuff of legend. But legends, too, can crumble. The federal judge overseeing the case, Arun Subramanian, denied Diddy's bail on July 2nd, citing the mogul's potential risk of flight and the seriousness of the ongoing investigations. These are not minor matters. Prosecutors allege violent behavior, coercion, and systemic abuse. Witnesses have come forward. Testimonies have been recorded. The image of the invincible mogul is now overshadowed by a far darker portrait, one that the courts are still unraveling. Gene Deal noted that Judge Subramanian's ruling was likely influenced by both the nature of the charges and the tone set by Diddy's public supporters. Christian's courthouse antics may seem small, in the grand scheme of things, but in a legal system that weighs character, remorse, and public behavior, they can loom large. The judge is watching, Deal warned. The prosecutors are watching. The public is watching. And if you're out there acting like you just won a Grammy, they're going to come down even harder. Christian's defense, if there was one, was never formally stated, but supporters have suggested that perhaps he was trying to project strength, show his father's support, or even distract from the moment's crushing emotional weight. None of that, however, mattered to Deal. To him, it was about awareness. About understanding the gravity of the moment. About knowing that this wasn't the time to flex. It was the time to reflect. As the media cycle churned through Deal's interview, reactions poured in. Some agreed with him wholeheartedly. Others accused him of being too harsh, too judgmental, perhaps even exploiting the situation to gain attention. But Deal didn't back down. For him, this wasn't about clout. It was about accountability. He had seen too many lives derailed by poor decisions and misplaced bravado. And he wasn't about to sit silently while the Combs legacy spiraled further. The legal road ahead is grim. Diddy remains in custody, and sentencing is set for October 2nd. According to legal analysts, the mandatory minimums on his conviction mean he will serve at least 85% of any sentence handed down. That could mean years in federal prison. And while his lawyers prepare a defense rooted in procedural arguments, character references, and legal technicalities, public perception continues to shift. Gone is the glamorous image of the man once dubbed the king of hip-hop entrepreneurship. In its place is a man shackled not only by chains but by years of allegations finally catching up with him. Christian, along with the rest of the Combs family, now finds himself at a crossroads. The coming months will test their unity, their resilience, and their willingness to confront truths they've likely spent years avoiding. For Deal, that reckoning can't come soon enough. He's watched this family rise, fall, and now teeter on the edge of collapse. His words, while harsh, carry the weight of experience and a deep familiarity with how quickly the powerful can become powerless. He urged Christian to understand that being the son of a mogul doesn't make you untouchable, that wealth doesn't make you wise, that cameras don't lie, and that when your father is fighting for his freedom, maybe the best thing you can do is sit quietly, pray, and remember that history is being written and you don't want your name remembered for flexing while your house burns down.